it. Six subscribers. Kind of excited about that. All right, we're gonna get started. So tonight we're gonna start something new. I've actually been tooling leather for a short time now. I've only gotten a couple projects done. I've gotten a belt done, a Western belt. I've gotten some toe tabs. I'm gonna show you. These bad boys are pretty cool. So, if you can't tell, I'm kind of into the Western theme with my leather work. I ride horses myself, but these are just kind of this is actually my second project. So I ended up doing these toe tabs. So these shoes are just normal Ariat slip-on shoes, but these are popular in the Western world where you get leather pieces made, and then they're just simply glued onto the toe of a shoe. So these were my second project that I've ever done. Did some leather painting, antiquing, staining, all sorts of stuff. So this is my second project. Third project was a set of coasters, leather coasters for my mom. So those turned out pretty good. So just getting going here and decided I might as well just start going along as much as I can, trying to get this leatherwork stuff going. So tonight I wanted to work on, just figured might as well work on this anyway for practicing. So figured might as well start streaming this stuff and sharing with you all, and also just any tips and tricks that I've learned along the way. So tonight we're doing cast iron pot handle covers. So if you have a cast iron, you all know that the handle of those things can get quite warm when they get heated up. So these are simply covers that they'll slide right over them. So I've actually snagged these tooling patterns off of Dan Gonzalez Saddlery. If you're interested in these, there is some free tooling patterns on there. In the chat, if you just type !patterns, there'll be a link in there to his website where they have a bunch of free templates and also ones that you can purchase as well. So these are Western themed. So if that's your jam, then you're in luck. If not, hopefully you can enjoy as well. But these are kind of nice. Someone's already kind of, figured out the template already. So this will be the back piece, the front piece. They'll get sandwiched together. He'll glue the edges, stitch the edges. But first we're going to tool the tops. So tonight I'm trying to debate between these two patterns here, either going with all the ivory and scroll here or going with a mix of that and a flower. I need some help on my shading and whatnot on flowers and other stuff. So I think I might go with this one. I'm going to challenge myself. I've been doing that quite a bit with all the patterns I've been choosing. I've been choosing like the least easy ones, which probably are not the smartest thing to do, but it's what I've been doing. So anyway, I think tonight I'm gonna go with this sucker right here. And for anybody on YouTube or Twitch that wants to try and DMCA any of this music, it is streams, beats, playlists from Spotify that are copyright free music. Thanks to Harris Heller. All right. Go ahead and get started. Typically, I got this just a random sheet of leather. You can get these at Tandy Leather Supply or any other leather supply stores. Usually they'll send, there's all sorts of thicknesses. I'm just randomly choosing this stuff. Normally working off of stuff, you come out, work off of big sheets, different thicknesses, different areas. That's the other thing too. I don't think a lot of people realize is there's a lot of different parts of the leather can be used for different things. As far as, if you're building a belt versus if you're doing like the shoe tongue covers that I've shown you, you can do Apple wristwatches, knife sheaths, coasters, all sorts of shit. So, this just picked up a random piece of leather, from Tandy. It does not say the thickness on here, but I could measure it if I need to. Anyway, we'll start with this. Start with our template, getting it marked out. You can use paper. I've done a little trick here where you get these little clear binder kind of sheets, clear ones. Because when you'll use like a little stylus pen here. A ballpoint pen works just as great too. But normally when you're doing on the paper, if you're doing like making a couple different things, what ends up happening is that'll eventually start tearing the paper a little bit because you're trying to run over the line, but then at the same time in trying to make an impression, but then at the same time, it kind of eventually over and over again, just like any ballpoint pen, if you go over, it'll tear the paper. So if you want to keep kind of these patterns, especially these, instead of having to reprint them all the time, you can also use clear packing tape. That's another trick. Just put it on both sides. I think you can put it on both sides, but you could just at least the side that you're rubbing. But I found these keeps them kind of tidy and organized in a 3-ring binder, but then doesn't damage the paper, which is great. So, little trick: typically you'll want to dampen the leather before you start tooling, like using cutting it. We'll get to that here in a minute, but I like to dampen it just a slight bit when I'm marking, because what I found is that if the leather's fairly dry and you start trying to trace, it's really hard to see the lines afterwards. So what ends up happening is like the moisture from the water ends up softening the leather just a slight bit, so that even the slightest amount of pressure from a pencil or a stylus pen or a ballpoint pen will actually leave a line. So that's the other kind of caveat to it you want to watch out, is that doing this will leave a line. So if you made a line that you didn't want, you're going to kind of see it. So just forewarning people. So we're going to trace this. We'll trace it, and then after we trace it, we will cut her out. I usually like to start in a corner because otherwise I'll forget where I started tracing. piece is done. As you can see, it'll leave lines here. And then we'll cut those out and trace them when we're done. Oh, I wish I could smell this leather. I am not doing the grommet hole, so you can cut and punch a number 11 punch here and cut out this hole here, this grommet hole, and you can actually get metal grommets so you can hook them on stuff in your kitchen. But I'm not gonna do that. Okay. Do the second one here. Once again, start at a corner or a tip or an edge so you at least don't lose track of where you're at, because you'll do what I do and I lose track very quickly. All right, got those cut out. They don't have to be perfect. Yeah, they do. Let's be honest. They do. I'm going to get my ruler just because I'm a freaking anal particular freak. I think I might need to move that light. Usually you'll cut with one of these. They're very, very sharp. I don't know what you call these. Knives. But they have two sides. And not a particular side does one or the other. It's just, you can cut with either side. I think when one side gets dull, you have that. But anyway, get this sucker cut out. And I already fucked it up. Oh, come on. Wet it down, make it a little bit more malleable. Ugh. Once we get it cut out, start doing the pattern. Tracing it at least. All right. So there's our back piece. We'll cut out our front piece. I'll go to the next step. You can dip your sponge in a cup too and wipe it that way, but I just found that using the spray bottle gets it a little bit more even, a little easier. It's gonna be tricky. This is gonna be a tight radius. Oh. It's a wee bit warm in here. Okay. So I'm just gonna finish cutting this out real quick. Thing I found too, which I catch myself doing, is you don't have to push that hard down on this. I push down way too hard, and if you push down way too hard, it's cutting into the board underneath, and you're not quite getting the push that you need, if that makes sense. It's hard to push it. It's kind of finding that kind of happy medium. Got through there. Almost. This is the boring part. There we go. Almost. Got her dicked. I don't know what this music is. I thought it was gonna be a lot better than it is. Apparently not. There we go. We'll go with some Terminator type stuff. All right, so these are cut out. The next trick, it's kind of the next steps. Before we get too far, we are going to line the back of it with blue painter's tape on the back side. Reason for this is this helps keep and hold the leather together so that when you're tooling it, you know, and tooling, you're essentially smashing down the leather to take shape. What it prevents is the mushrooming effect, or I think that's the easiest way to do it. Call it the mushrooming effect the leather will do when you do that. Because if you don't put any painter's tape on the backside, I've seen this because I've done it when I first got started trying it out. I did a drink coaster and it ruined it. But it will mushroom and sandwich out the leather, and it's not good. Pretty simple. You just slap it on the back, just trim it on the edge. I think some people just use a razor blade to quickly go around. I don't trust myself. I'm not that good enough yet, because I guarantee you I will probably nick the leather on accident, and then we'll be starting over. And especially doing this on stream makes me even more nervous. My perfectionist kicks in even more, because I don't want to ruin it and start over and look like a doof. We got to start somewhere, right? So we'll leave this on basically close till the end. Once all the tooling is done. Any sort of cutting, tooling, any of that kind of stuff. Careful with this edge lock tape too, because I got this thinking this will be great, and it almost, I think, sucks to the leather too much. That it gets it more of an effect that I really didn't want it to have. Like, it sticks really well. When I think too, when I went to go tear it off the last time, I had the leather fairly wet, and there was so many leather fibers on the backside that just stuck to it. It looked pretty bad. It looked pretty bad. I felt like I was ripping off like layers and essentially thinning the leather or skiving it to where it was just thin in places where I didn't want it to be thin. Happened on the coasters actually that I made. They just got so thin. I was so worried. I think the coasters turned out fairly well, but I was so worried after seeing them. I was like, oh crap. Just ripped like half the leather off. Over exaggerating. It wasn't half, but it was a reasonable amount. Okay. So we got that done. Next. This is a little bit harder to do with solid paper. Typically too, so there's a variety of ways. You can do it this, like I do. Where you just kind of get it on the top of it, trace it over, and you're done. The other way to do it is to trace this onto tracing paper. You can do it on wax paper, tracing paper, whatever. And then put that on the leather. You can see through it. Makes it easier to kind of see your lines, kind of get it straightened up and lined up. Or third is you can hand draw it. I'm not that good yet. I wish I was. I would love to be that good, but I'm just simply not. So we get started here. I wonder if I'll be able to see this. Kinda. Oh, yeah, kinda, I guess. There we go. Yeah, I can kind of see the leather through all of this, actually. Okay. I think I cut this a little bit thinner too than I really wanted to, but it's a practice one. Like I said, it's practice. Got it close enough. I don't even know why I did this on the back piece, because we don't need that. I guess we could tool a back piece though. Maybe we'll do some basket stamping on the back. I think I'm gonna go with this one. I need to work on my floral design, so I think we'll go with this one. So once again, it's hard to see through, so you just want to keep track of your lines, where you kind of start. On this stylus pen, I like to use the end with no ball. There's, if you can see, there's a ball on this end, like a ballpoint pen, and this end there's not. I like to use the end that's not, and the only reason being is because it doesn't leave as wide of an impression, which I don't want. Sometimes you want some fairly thin lines, and it'll get kind of fucked up. So I think to start, I'm just gonna go around the outside. Other thing I noticed with tracing, and I've heard this from, I actually learned this trick from a tattoo artist. When you're drawing, it's easier to control if you're pushing your pen and you're seeing where you're pushing it to, so you can see your lines, versus dragging it, because dragging it, sometimes you lose track of the line, and sometimes it's harder to kind of keep a nice smooth line going. I'll start from the bottom and work my way up. scrolls. We'll get the flower now. Actually, I need to change. Think we got everything? Yeah. Looks pretty good. Oh, why is my bit rate going to shit? Okay. All right, so we got everything transferred. So now the next step is going to be cutting all of our lines in with a swivel knife. But before we do that, we need to spray this sucker down. So I like to get a fair amount of water on there. We are going to let it kind of soak in and set before we get going too far with it. Perfectionist kicks in. You can tell I didn't quite line everything up. I got fat over here with the handle, but that's okay. We'll trim our lines better next time. In reality, what I should have done is I should have trimmed the edge, the outline, and then the pattern all at the same time, and then cut it out. So learn from my mistakes. Don't do what I did. Just gonna let it dry a little bit. While we're letting it dry, we're gonna get our handy dandy swivel knife. This one I got from Tandy Leather. I like it because the blade, as you can see, is not as wide. Some of these you'll get a fairly wide blade. The other thing you'll notice too is it's tapered. It makes it easier, at least for me. Normally, if you get a flat blade, is the ones that they have that you'll see, you have to tip those back to kind of get that cutting. Whereas this is already tapered, so I don't have to tip it back nearly as much. It also makes two like round, tight corners a lot easier. Because otherwise, if you don't get quite the tilt right and you got too much blade in there, it'll end up kind of shoving and mushing the leather a little bit and won't get you kind of that much of a clean line. So I found this, I love it way better than the original one I started with, which was a much wider blade and it was straight. It was just harder to get a lot of detailed cuts and stuff. This will help with detailed cuts for sure. But before we got to do that, we got to polish the blade. Use some I don't know this is what it's called, but I just called it my sharpening block. You can get them at Tandy Leather. You can actually also all this is a wooden block handle with leather on it. Leather on this side, leather on this side. This is a little more rough. This is a lot finer leather. But you can take any piece of leather you have actually and just do the same thing. Just get this on here. You can buy it at the store. Some polish. Nice and lathered up. And the trick is you want to make sure on the blade that you follow the angle of the cut of the blade so you don't screw it up. I hold it against my chest and look down because it's a lot easier to follow that angle of the blade so I don't screw up that angle. You have a little bit residual on there. Now our blade's nice and sharp. Leather, it feels damp to the touch, but not dark like it was before. And now we can get started. I like to just have it just damp, a little on the damp side. The nice thing about it is you don't want it too wet where when you go to cut, it's just going to shove and push the leather and not cut it very well. But then you don't want it too dry where it's going to you'll get a cracking effect is what will end up happening. If you could see kind of here on the edges, that's kind of what it was when I kind of trimmed this out, is I didn't have it very well wet, and that's why it kind of went goofed. But we'll let this dry just a tad bit more, and then we'll get started here. Okay. It doesn't really matter where you start, as long as you start somewhere. I'm gonna start with a flower because it's easier lines and I don't want to fuck it up. Look at those lines. They're nice and pretty. And you can tell in your first kind of couple cuts to tell how the leather is cutting. You know, is it cutting well? Is it dragging it? Is it tearing it? Or, you know, you kind of get a feel for it. And usually, too, where I see where a little line will meet a big line, and this is going to be setting more forward or to the front. Typically, I'll do that line first and then bring it, but not let them intersect. So you can see I can just stop short. Another little trick too, and then probably a lot of people don't do it, is I actually rest my pinky on the underside of the blade to kind of help push it and rotate it as I need. just to be safe, we're gonna wet it again. Plus, I got a little bit of air kind of blowing through the room, so let's be drying this leather out. Now I need to get better lighting in this room to kind of shine down on where I'm really working on, but for now, I don't know how deep those cuts really are. I think that's all the lines cut. Probably just trace lightly the border. Done, done. Dun, 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 dun. All right, so now comes the fun part. Whoa. All right. So next we're going to get started. That's probably too bright. You guys can't see that. There we go. There we go. See the lines a little bit better. So what we're gonna do is next we're gonna start the actual tooling. Hence leather tooling. So typically what you'll do is you'll start with a beveler. Bevelers look like this. Easier to show you on a bigger one. So these bevelers, this is a smooth beveler. So what they do is you can see they're pretty harsh on an edge. But what this does is this will give this these different pieces here depth. So typically what will happen is you'll want to bevel a line. Typically the easiest parts to start with are wherever there's a background. So an example in this piece is taking a look at this, you know, there's the easiest obvious places are here, here, here are little pieces of background. So what will end up happening is you'll bevel along these edges and you'll push the background down, and that'll create a nice solid crisp line around here. And what we're trying to do is, especially this piece you can see right here, is that you want to make this stand out and pop. And then these other lines here where everything kind of overlaps, typically what you'll do is, for an example like with this flower we want to pop, so we're going to bevel around all the outside edge so that this flower stands out taller than the rest behind it, if that makes sense. But I think this is the easiest way to do it. You know, this is a background here, so we're going to bevel basically all these sides. We're going to bevel this down. We'll bevel this down. We'll bevel this down. Anywhere there's a full background, you'll bevel all sides, basically. So I think the easiest thing on this flower to start with is probably to start with just a flower and going around the edges. And then we can bevel the little petals and bevel all sorts of other stuff. So, but typically, I mean, you'll have these bigger bevelers like this. I like to use the smaller ones only because they're a little bit easier to go around corners and edges, right? Tight little corners and edges. But they're also a little trickier because they're smaller. They're a little bit more finicky. So what I'll end up doing is I'll use the bigger beveler on long lines like this, where there's not too much curvature going on. And then I'll use a smaller one around the details especially. Got them all. This one is, I believe this is Berry King. Yep, this is a Berry King Mall. It's 24 ounces, so it's rather heavy. I think typically they say like with like when you do basket stamp, like basket weave, and other kind of stamps like that, where you need a really solid stamp impression made, use the heavier one so you don't have to hit it as hard for yourself and wear your arm out faster, whereas this is doing most of the work. Typically what you'll use, like with beveling and other stuff, is a 16 ounce. I don't have one currently. So that's kind of the next on the list. I'm going to get a 16 ounce because you'll notice when I'm using this 24 ounce, by the time I'll get finished, my arm and wrist is pretty sore. Granted, this is my bad arm, but my shoulder, everything is just sore from just holding. It's fairly, I mean, it's 24 ounces. So, I mean, it's not light, especially when you're doing what you're doing with it. So, but I'm just going to go ahead and get started beveling flower. And these little weighted pouches right here are so nice. You can make them yourself if you're really handy and crafty, which I am, but I just didn't want to take the time. So I ordered one. You can get them. I think I got this one off of Etsy. I think it was like $10. They're filled. They're weighted. I mean, this one's probably 5 pounds, so it's pretty heavy. But the point of it is to stick it on an edge so that your piece, because if you look at this, I mean, this slides around pretty easily. So this helps kind of put it on the edge, keep it in place. Actually, before I get going, another smart thing is to wet it if you feel that it's kind of lost its moisture. This pounding slate, you can get all sorts online. I got this one actually off of Amazon. I think it's a 9x12. It was like 50 some bucks. But it's a granite slab. I think it's 2-inch thick. But it's nice for working. I got a smaller one from Tandy. It's 6x6, but you'll learn that not quite big enough. This is like perfect size. Let it dry just a little bit more. I can tell it's fairly soft still, so I don't want to ruin it too much. But as you can see, it's already starting to make a bevel. It doesn't make as big of a bevel. I think if I get this bigger one, yeah, it just pushes it out more. This bigger one's great. It's just so hard to get around corners. As you can see, it makes that flower edge kind of pop. It pushes that background behind it, makes the edge pop. Nice crisp edge. As you can see, these lines, so this pedal is going to be in front of that pedal and that pedal, so we're going to push that pedal behind it. Yeah, I don't like that bigger one. Same with over here. Here you can see the flower is folded over right here. This is a fold in the flower, or it's folding over. So that edge is going to be nice and crisp. Also, too, you want to watch your edge. So, like, where you want to be able to see the edge. So I'm making that nice crisp line, so I need to see that line that this tool is making. Otherwise, you'll lose track and you'll F it up. These are going to be tricky. These little rounded edges, because it's going to be tricky to get around those and not goof it up. I always cut the freaking line short, but another little trick you can do too is tip it back a little bit. I'm over exaggerating, but tip it back a little bit. See if I can get closer. Once again, this is the part of the flower that's folded over. Now this usually will is a lifter, so it'll lift, and actually we'll use it on this, but I'm going to use it on these tight little corners that I can't quite get that beveler to do what I really want it to do to get around those tight corners, so I'm going to use this instead. Center real quick. Nope. So this lifter, I'll probably do it on these as well. See, it kind of lifts that out and gives that kind of impression of where the leaf on the end is folding over itself. Do the same on this one. Kind of darkens it up too. Oh, it's got to make time for some dew break. I'll be honest, these scroll kind of ivory pieces, I'm not the best at. I'm going to admit that. It's kind of why I'm delaying it a bit here. So next what we'll do is I'm just going to start from the easiest point. So this loop here needs to stick up front. Typically too, I saw a good kind of tip. Mr. Gonzalez saw a YouTube video on is typically what you want to do is you want to continue pushing your way out. So like if I'm going to push this down, I need to keep working my way away so that you're not smashing something and then coming this way and smashing something and then having to go back. Like you're always just working your way away from yourself, if that makes sense. And I goof it up all the time too. So like this is going to be in the forefront. This will be in the forefront. Right. We'll just keep just following that. So like the line will go here. I'm actually going to flip it because this is the background. Like I said, this little piece is the background. So we're going to create a solid line here so that this pops. And then we're going to flip around and push down that background so that this pops. But as you can see, this line follows this piece and not this piece. So this piece is going to be this will be in the background. This will be in the forefront. This piece is behind it. So we're going to make that a solid line as well. This piece is behind that piece. So we're going to make that as well. So like I said, I haven't done this very much. So you're learning along here with me. And this one I might. Yeah, this one I might actually use the bigger bevel. Just because they're longer, more straight lines. Just covers more ground, gets more of an impression. It's steep. It's just as steep, but it's going to give a lot more wider bevel. I already did it right there. I just did it backwards and how I should have done it. See, so I want to create this line. I'm doing it all ass backwards. I apologize. This is where I'm going to kind of lighten it up just a bit so I can use that lifter to kind of cheat this. Because I am not going to make that bend with that beveler. That actually is probably going to get tooled down as like a full-on background, to be honest. So we're just going to keep working our way out. Nope. I wish I wouldn't have made that cut such a small background, because that's going to be tough. It's not bad. I think I fucked up one of the lines. Like, I think it should have just kept going progressively as layers, but it's my bad. We'll fix it later. I like the smaller one. It's just easier to handle and hold and kind of curve with the curve. I don't know. Wet it before I get too far. So the flower will probably use this pear shader. I wish I had a little bit smaller one. It's not smooth, but we'll use that here. I wish I had a smaller one. I do have a smaller pear shader, but it's smooth. This would be. This might be. We'll try them out. We'll see which one's gonna be best. Because this one will here and here. Yeah, that'll work. My cedar. fucked that up, but that's fine. Pew! It's pretty close to being done. As far as the beveling goes. You thought we were done. Psych! Just do some shitty. I was totally looking at it wrong. I was looking for this little piece here, and I was like, what the? Yeah. Okay. I think we're gonna give this a shot. This is the checkered pear shape. See what happens with the there you go. That one looks good. Yeah, that one looks good. This one, it's okay. It'll do. That'll do, Cotton. So you get a little shape, little texture to it. There we go. I probably went a little overboard on that one, but gives a little bit of texture to it. I don't have my singular cedar. I wonder if I could. Use a cedar as my background cedar and see how it looks. Not to bit. That's terrible. Actually might look good on the inside here. See if we can work this in. Just gonna rotate it around as I go to get some uniformity going. Gotta literally be a little bit more precise with it, it looks like. It's kind of why I almost like this background here. Because you can kind of just walk it. It's kind of like a checkered background. You can kind of just walk it around, which is kind of nice. Right? See, I just like it. It's just easier to blend. like the looks of that a lot better. Yeah, I like this shader a lot better. I mean, don't get me wrong, the cedar looks good, but you have to be like spot on with it. Otherwise, it kind of overlaps and looks kind of like dog shit. Let's be honest. I think I've had enough fun for the night, though. So much easier to see to kind of get it uniformly mashed down. Looks good though. I think we're gonna call it there. I hope you all enjoyed. We'll make more of these as we go along. Try to get on a good schedule. Probably Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We might be gaming on certain nights, but the certain nights I decide not to game and do this instead. Kind of kill two birds with one stone. So, hope you all enjoyed. I hope you all learned something. I hope I learned something, which I think I did today. Typically do, but hopefully to see more of you around this next time. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. We'll catch you later on this week.